Hi, our guest today is School Superintendent Bob Tremblay. Bob, how you doing?
Good, Kevin. How are you?
Good. Well, we're taping this in late July to air in mid-August, so it's actually, when this airs, back to school time.
Excellent. Great.
What's going to be new in the school system this year?
I'm not sure I want to think about the start of the school year yet in mid-July. we're still kind of coming off the last year. Well, you know, this time of the year is always the hiring. So we have teachers who've gone on to retirement or teachers who found work in other communities. So a big part of what we do over the summer is preparing for the school year, getting new teachers on board. We had, for example, we have Seth Wood, who's a teacher at Woodland School, is now the new assistant to the principal at Brookside School for the coming year. So he's a new member of our leadership team. So now we have to replace his position. And as it works, now that people will sort of jockey for that role, and then that will create another vacancy, and the ripple effect begins. So you hope by the start of school that everybody's in place, and that's the big part of what our summer work is. But coming up this year for school, well, we have the Woodland School Project, which is a major...
the steel is all up.
Steel is all up. They finished that a couple weeks ago. Of course, when we air this, it'll be a couple of months ago. It's well on time, if not ahead of schedule, on schedule. So we're really planning this year for the transition of the district. We're transitioning, getting ready to transition grade 5 out of Stacy Middle School to the new Woodland School, getting ready to transition grades 3 and 4 out of the existing building to walk across the complex into their new building, and then simultaneously preparing to transfer grade 8 staff from Middle School East to Stacy Middle School. So we have really 3 moves happening, all in the span of the same time. So that's really the bulk of what we're doing this year. There's really not a lot of, I mean, there are always new initiatives. We have a 3D printer. We have a grant through the Blackstone Valley Education Foundation, so we're expanding our robotics and our engineering programs. So curriculum-wise, there's always new things happening. But as far as major projects...
The English Language Learner Program has expanded a little bit over last year.
It has. You know, we deal with that expanding population. And
no idea how many will show up this September.
No idea. You know, even, it's another unknown is kindergarten. You know, we have kindergarten students register, and we expect we'll have between 30 and 50 register between now and the start of school.
Now we had a realtor tell us on the show a couple of months ago that most of the houses being sold to parents with small kids are sold in like the May, June, July time frame because they want their kids registered and ready to go in a school system in the fall.
I believe it. I think that good, responsible families are thinking that way. And then there are other families who I just think that either they figured that I hadn't thought of it or whatever it may be, but we have this sudden rush of new registrations for kindergarten in August. I never understood it, but if you're happen to be watching this and you know somebody or you're in your family, and this is now going to be in August, by the time you hear this message, get to the Family Resource Center immediately to register for school.
Now, since my kids are all in their 20s, and to me, you're talking decades ago, is it 5 years old for kindergarten or 6?
It's 5 years old. By August 31st is the cutoff.
Okay.
So you have to be 5 years old. Not September 1st, August 31st, 5 years old.
You know, I used to be able to remember that, but like I said, my kids are in their 20s, and now their focus is more on, Dad, can I have some money?
I know that drill.
Speaking of kids, I want to compliment you on something. I don't want to embarrass either you or your son, Ben, but you guys were seated at the same table at the Paul Mazzucchelli's Prospect Heights Mayor inaugural breakfast.
Yes.
And Paul's wife, Cookie, asked her son a question, and he began answering, and you stopped him and told him to finish the food in his mouth. And I'm going to look at the camera. Ben, I'm not trying to embarrass you here, but you actually corrected him and said, don't answer with food in your mouth. Wait till you're done. He apologized. He finished his food, apologized, and answered very politely. I just got to say, that's probably the first time in years I've seen a parent teach their child manners openly. And at the time we're taping this, there's this big flap about the diner in New Hampshire where the owner of the diner yelled at the woman whose kid didn't stop crying for 40 minutes.
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
And the sentiment is weighing about 20 to 1 in favor of the diner owner for telling the parents to shut the kid up. But I actually just wanted to compliment you because too often today, and if Al Holman, my co-host, were here today, he'd compliment it too because it's a big thing. Maybe it's the older we get, but to actually see a parent teaching manners, I want to compliment you. And Ben, who's in the audience, not trying to embarrass you, I want to compliment you on the way you took it without complaining and actually gave a very polite answer to Mrs. Mazzucchelli. I just want to interrupt and say that because I don't see parents doing that anymore.
Well, no, thank you. You know, I know the French toast was out of this world evidently, so he couldn't get it down fast enough. So I think that was part of it. But, you know, I agree with that point, and I think broadly, I think really more parents should openly teach their kids manners. I mean, eye contact, shaking a hand. I mean, well, you know, the things we learn in Scouts that you're very involved with, and,
right.
and the big takeaways that my son and other kids take away. That's just part of the course of.
I mean, I always knew I succeeded as a parent when my youngest son, who's now 20, I think he was about 18, and we're eating lunch in Papagino's on 140. And these two sets of parents are talking, and their kids are about 3 or 4, running all over the restaurant screen, back and forth, and they're running through the line where you order and pay. And the parents are just talking for like 20 minutes, and the kids are screaming. And my son Andrew looks up at me and goes, "Dad, somebody ought to tell those parents to get a hold of their kids." And I just looked at him and I said, "I have succeeded."
That's it. Isn't
anyway,
that great?
we got off the track, but
no, thank you for the compliment too.
That's okay.
Appreciate that.
One of the things that's been really hotly debated over the last couple of months has been the IT situation.
Sure.
And at the most recent selectmen's meeting prior to this taping, it's sort of a given now that the municipal offices are going to do their thing, and I guess the schools are going to do their thing, and they'll liaise when needed, but not really. I think that's where you're both headed.
Yeah, well, that's not exactly the direction that the school department wanted to go necessarily. We know there's a need for an IT director for the school department that understands the unique needs of technology in schools.
Right.
Which is different in terms of the, as you know, for the end user.
Well, just like I don't expect you guys to understand the assessing, tax collector, town accountant, treasurer financial packages.
Exactly. So
They're
there's
specialized.
It's very specialized. There may be a need down the road. For example, one idea I'd heard discussed was perhaps to have an IT director for the school, an IT director for the town, and then having a CTO or a CIO to whom both those would report in terms of this sort of hierarchy, this pyramid hierarchy. I think that's down the road a bit. The approach we wanted to take was to really have an independent assessment of our organizational structure of the town. And to do that with an impartial third opinion.
Right.
That's a challenge because there are many local vendors with whom we work and other vendors in the community who would love to work in Milford who will come quickly to say, we have the solution. We can tell you where your system is flawed.
It just happens to be ours.
And we can provide that solution for you. And I'm sure they can.
Yeah.
But it's to find an impartiality to someone to say, listen, based on what we've seen across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the best practices in districts about your size seem to be X.
Well, it also seems like both sides want to use this Governor Baker's initiative. I can't.
It's the Mass IT. It's the Community Compact initiative.
Community Compact, but the Mass IT part under it, where they'd come in and analyze and give you that objective viewpoint without trying to sell you something.
And that's where we want to be. So the last meeting of the school committee, which would be the July meeting, and there's not one in August, so that will be the last meeting as this taping goes. The committee, they had asked me for a report, the Board of Selectmen asked for a report, which I provided to them for their Monday meeting, as you referenced. And in there, basically saying, in the short term, we'll work with a third-party outside vendor to get us the back end that we need. Yeah,
the gist of it, I think, is Rick Filani, the town administrator, is recommending selectmen do that, and you guys do it, and that'll maybe solve that. But since I've been around a few years, which is sometimes a curse, but also gives you longevity to know things, you know, I'd also like to point out to all the people knocking, you know, saying the schools are the reason this didn't work, or the town is the reason this didn't work. Let's give you credit where it is. We only have an IT administrator in the town, or had several, because you forced the issue and came and said, I'll pay 60%, you guys pick up the rest. Or you could afford to pay 60 if somebody picked up the rest. And you know, it's only 4 years ago. The town never had an IT director till you pushed it forward. So I think, you know, let's lay the history out here, because there's been a lot of finger pointing. Who's to blame for this, that, and the other thing? You know, I like one of the comments the selectman made recently is, let's look through the windshield, not the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you know, let's give credit. You forced the issue, And I still find it odd, having a corporate background for about 30 years in between my beginnings as a reporter and my ending as a reporter. Yeah, you're talking a $90 to $100 million company with very limited IT resources, and that's just astonishing to anybody in private industry.
Yeah, it really it needs a look. It needs a and I appreciate the compliment too. That said, on the other side of that is that I was part of a hiring committee for the IT director, and I'm really not the best person to hire an IT director, and I'd be the first to admit that. And I think anybody in this hiring committee should have that same admission, because
the selectmen discussed getting IT people, like professional IT people, on the hiring committee.
Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If I'm going to hire a Spanish teacher, I can tell you something. It won't be me interviewing. It's going to be somebody who speaks the language. And computers is no different.
Well, I can tell you, you know, I was in high-tech PR and marketing for close to 35 years. And I remember the best job interview I had, and I walked out of there saying, I got this job, was I walked in there, and the guy started asking me questions about Microsoft and IBM had just announced dueling operating systems for PCs. This is in the 90s. And the guy asked me my opinion, and we spent an hour and a half debating the merits of the operating systems. Never talked about my background, never talked about anything. I went home, my wife said, how'd the job interview go? And I said, there's no way I'm not getting this job. And the phone rang the next morning.
Because if you were able to debate at that length, you must have the background knowledge to
The guy wanted somebody to do PR for high tech, and our whole discussion, I mean, he could care less whether I could write. He didn't look, you know, he'd obviously gotten my resume and I got in the door, so he was interested. He wanted to know if I knew technology because it was a technology PR agency.
Sure.
And that was the best job interview I ever had. I tell people I knew I had the job.
I think it's finding that right person, or finding those right people, or that right organization, whatever it may be. But we have a clear plan for where we want technology to evolve over the next 3 years. But getting somebody who's a true visionary for technology, who understands the best practices in education, who can say, okay, I got you for the next 3, where are we going to go for the next 3 after that, and to begin to phase that in. And
while a lot of schools are, you know, using iPads, I understand you're going to pilot on the more generic Chromebook.
Correct.
Why the Chromebook?
We looked at a number of school districts ranging from iPad initiatives and being the parent of children in a school district.
In Minden Upton, which is iPad.
Yeah, which is iPad. To BYOD, where you brought a variety of devices, to Chromebook initiatives. So Milford's really moving toward a blended learning initiative. So it's not to suggest that every student, we're not going to issue 4,300 Chromebooks on day one.
Or make the parents buy them.
Or make the parents buy them.
Right.
What we're going to do is very strategically roll them out, and we've done an RFP for teachers to say, we're going to provide you with a laptop card, Chromebook card, say you have 25 systems. Tell us how you're going to use that, how you're going to not just use it to replace the curriculum, but how you're going to really transform teaching and learning in your classroom with this. So we have a number of proposals that we've been vetting those to see where we'll invest our first round of money that we've budgeted for these, which are about half the price of iPads. And then to strategically roll that out in those areas, ideally at Woodland School, which when it comes online will be really our high profile and our most robust network school. Then at the middle level, of course, and at the high school level. So we're going to see how that goes. At the same time, we're going to prepare our staff by giving them the professional development they need to use these devices, understand how they work, and what are the best practices around integrating that into instruction. So all of those reasons led us to the affordability. Milford is of a demographic where we would have to provide for many of our families, provide them as a school district. So we may get to a point where it's a one-to-one, everybody has them, they can take them home. That's not what we're building it as to begin. It's blended learning. It'll be available to students in school, maybe labs, maybe classroom carts. That's how we're going to roll this out, slowly, in phases, and affordably.
And also, if you have a computer at home, since Chromebook is Google-based, you can probably access the software at home.
Absolutely. You know, and one of the big, and I know library is a passion of yours, libraries generally, but you think about the town and the school as being sort of separate operations, because the library would fall really to the municipal side of the house.
Well, it's not. I think they're really tied in with you.
Without a doubt. For those students who don't have computers at home, I need to be sure, working with the library director, that the computers there, the students have the same resources available at the library, which may be their only outlet for using this technology. So I want to make sure that that system is running on par with what the schools put in place. So there really is a need for the people who are thinking that you know, I'm a cowboy and I'm a rogue and I'm doing my own thing and going. It's really not the case. I want to make clear, and maybe this is the opportunity to say, there's an urgency in the schools that may not be in the town when you're dealing with just payroll software or calendars. I have 180 days before a student leaves that grade to the next grade. That's all I get.
You also said something a couple of years ago. I don't remember the forum, but it stuck in my mind. When you said, when you get a kid coming in at the lower grades, you are educating him for a job that doesn't yet exist in today's world.
Absolutely right.
And I mean, it's hard enough for the kids in high school to try to, at junior year, pick their career. You know, I have a passion for this, but gee, they're only hiring in this. But I'm, still going to become a sociology major, knowing I might not get a job. But I mean, it's hard enough with that. But the technology in the world is changing so fast that it's extraordinarily hard, I think, knowing what the kids learn. I mean, when I was in the workforce, the corporate workforce, you carried a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Today everybody's got a tablet, or some people do it all on a smartphone.
Absolutely. And to plan that out 5 years, the technology will change, 10 times between now and then. I mean, we never would have envisioned the technology we have now.
I never envisioned that. I've got a son living in North Carolina, and I never envisioned that I could Skype him.
Right.
I can FaceTime him and have a face-to-face conversation with him a couple of times a week. If you had told me that 10 years ago, I would have said the computing power is massive, needed for that, or 15 years ago.
The old Crier computers to fill a room.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I always tell people the story that the computer that put men on the moon was, I think, 1K of what some people used to call flushable memory. That is, they would upload a command, they'd execute it, wipe the memory clean, and upload another one. And your $9.99 digital watch for people who wear it, or your $300 Apple Watch, has thousands of times the computer power of that. And that was 1969. So I can't. 30 years, 40 years, we've gone from, as you said, a room-sized computer is now on a wristwatch.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, we have two teachers right now. Well, by the time this is airing, they'll be back home, but they're in China. And they're providing professional development to the school. We created this sister relationship, and they're over there providing professional development at this school with basically how to teach United States customs and traditions and best practices around teaching English. And they're there, and I'm communicating back with them. I can Skype with them using WeChat, you name the app. I interview regularly for teachers from Spain with our Spanish, back at home in a room. We're Skyping. In Spain and making hires that way.
Well, I mean, just locally, I find amazing is a couple of our viewers have asked why this finger was been in a bandage the last couple of things. I saw the top of my finger off with a table saw. It was a horrible accident. It's back. But I remember sitting in the ER of Milford Regional, and they've got the hand surgeon is looking at my X-rays in an office in Framingham, live on a screen, coming over a telephone. They're not yet where it's the two-way, Skyping, because he had the visual up. But he's telling the ER guy how to sew my finger on so I don't lose it, based on looking at the X-rays and photographs of it.
Incredible.
And to me, that's incredible, given where we come from, and that's all possible with the computer power.
Isn't like remote surgery possible? I think I've seen something about that. I don't know if I'm making it up.
Remote surgery is actually where the robot does it, because it's actually finer motor skills than a surgeon's hands.
Wow.
It's not really remote. It's not like he's controlling it from, a continent away.
Okay.
At least that's my understanding. But I mean...
Imagine where we'll be in a decade from now. We can't
mean,
even believe what we have.
I mean, I remember a high school teacher standing up, and he asked every kid who had passed a test to stand up, and he said, to the rest of you guys, you'll be pumping their gas. And it was meant as a kick in the pants to get this up, but I mean, even the gas pumping jobs are going away. It's all, computerized manual stuff.
That's it.
Except in Milford, which is one of the last towns that has people pumping gas for you. But
and I think technology, though, has been maybe overblown quite a bit in terms of...
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It's really nothing more. It's a pencil. I mean, it's just how we do business. It's just the way we learn and how you communicate now. It's not like a technology initiative. Technology is as much embedded as a desk or a chair.
What I heard somebody say is the rise of Google and the other search engines It's kids are no longer memorizing rote facts. They're learning where to find those facts.
Right.
And then the job is to teach them to go find accurate places to find
And that's
them.
the challenge, is that sort of digital citizenship, digital competencies, to know how do you separate fact from fiction? How do you know that Wikipedia is not a valid resource?
I always remind everybody, hey guys, I've written Wikipedia pages, so there you go.
Absolutely.
If you want to trust them, I've written a couple.
And they're very informative, but
they're very informative, but they depend on people
it's
updating
just not empirical.
them. And when you find things in them that aren't true, that's what I've done, is I've gone in and said, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true.
Oh, wow. That's
And
good.
gotten them corrected, because other people have created things.
Does that show up right on the Wikipedia page?
Eventually
some
it
of those
does.
corrections?
Yeah, if you go through the edit history, there are places where you could go through it. It gives you the history of who's edited and why.
Interesting.
It's just, when I look about something in Wikipedia and it's not exactly right, I correct it.
It's great. Yeah, so technology is busy in schools. Yeah, we have a big year coming up.
But no major challenges. I mean, your athletic director was last year.
It's fantastic, and I played tennis with him this morning.
Okay.
We were on the same team, doubles. I felt a lot of nervous pressure to be on the team with the AD. But
Oh, I was going to say, is there anything you don't play? I mean, you play every musical instrument I can think of.
Oh, well, yeah, sports is a stretch for me. So tennis is about it. I don't want to get too crazy. No, but the transition is a real big year for us, because that's a lot of movement, it's a lot of buildings, middle school reuse, east reuse. What's going to happen? What's the future of that building? That remains to be seen.
Knows.
We don't want to see that building boarded up. We don't want to see that building mothballed.
I think everybody agrees on that. Everybody agrees you don't want to lose the gym.
That's what I've heard.
And
Yeah.
then the rest of it's up in the air.
Yeah, and find what's
I've
the
heard everything
best
from
use.
moving your administrative offices to that building and leasing out the rest. I think that committee is just really starting to get into it.
Yeah, we're really looking at that. I sit
Oh,
on
that's
that
right, you're
group.
on it.
Yeah, I sit on that group. We've met probably 3 or 4 times, and just trying to see what's the real estate stock in that building. What's the market interest? Who wants it and for what reason?
You need parking.
Yeah, the parking's a challenge.
Personally, I think any kind of junior college would be fantastic, even if it's a couple of rooms.
Absolutely.
Parking is an issue, but it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it works for a number of middle school East staff, because you have a lot of on-street, but you have some parking there, and that could be redesigned, I suppose.
You have that. Everybody is universal. We can't afford to lose that gym.
Yeah, it's a loved gym in this community, and even though the Woodland School Gym will be coming online, it's only replacing the Woodland School Gym that's currently online. It's not like we're adding so losing that would be really a net loss of a gym.
Right, but you also have a core of, you have the Middle East building, you have the newly renovated youth center will be reopening at some point this fall.
Right.
I think the goal is September, but let's say between now and the end of the year, that's going to be open. You have the library and you have Stacy. You have this, and you also have town hall. But in terms of where a lot of youth congregate, where people congregate, you sort of have this quad of the library, Stacy, youth center, Middle East in like a block by block basis. It seems silly to lose one of those buildings.
Yeah, right. So that'll be future of that to be determined, but that'll all be part of the discussions this year. So, and probably the biggest change of all is that I'm going to be the principal of Middle School East on top of my day job next year.
You are.
Yeah, Dr. McIntyre, my assistant, and I wanted to really shepherd or usher in this transition process and really right in the trenches with the staff to help make the transition as smooth as we possibly can for everybody. So we've put ourselves out there to lead that school.
So you're going back to being a principal.
Going back to being a principal. I haven't been principal yet at the 8th grade level, so this will be new for me.
Speaking of which, now, this school year is how many years as a superintendent?
Yeah, so July 1st I started my 9th as superintendent, and my 18th in Milford as an administrator.
You are probably one of the longest serving school superintendents in this eastern half of the state.
You're probably right. And the question is, I guess, do I have enough to last the long stretch? I think I do.
I heard that you wanted to stay till a group of kindergartners graduated high school. Is
That's
that
correct.
true?
Yeah, the first, that was my goal, was the first tuition-free full-day kindergarten class. I believe that happened in 2000, and I started in 2007, so I think it was in 2008 was the first class.
So they would be in 8th grade now?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So you've got 5 more years by that track.
That's correct. And then we'll see where, we have to see whether or not I get enough contracts offered to me first. And if that's the case, then whether or not, if I can last the length or if it's time to go. But I really do enjoy working and serving the town of Milford. It's a great community. Like any other community, it has its challenges, but we have an exciting
one of the
year.
things I read a couple of years ago, it was a woman who was the school superintendent of Washington, D.C., had a rocky tenure and left.
Mm.
And she wrote a piece on what was wrong with public education for Newsweek about 3 or 4 years ago. And one of the things she cited was the fact that the average tenure for school superintendent is 2 to 3 years.
That's it.
And you're sitting there at 3 times that.
And imagine, I mean, you think about coming into a new community, and I suppose at that level like DC, it's really more like a business, but where Milford is a good-sized community of the region, it's still small enough where you can get to know everybody by name.
Right.
Staff and students, and if you take the time to do that. And that's what's great about this particular community, is that you can really get to know everybody. And I see these kids, from when they were 5 years old, and the benefit of my office being at the high school is I see these kids that I was their principal. And there's something of value to that, where I've been in Milford for 18 years and I sort of know who the players are and what some of the problems are. But I can't imagine going to a new district and only being there for 3 years and really trying to affect change when I have no idea of the landscape of that community, what the problems are, what the educational challenges are, and then to actually get there, budget for it, make people understand this is a priority, deliver that, and then say, job done. I'm 9 years in and I'm still getting started.
Or they say job done.
Or they say job done. But in reality, we're not. And it's just, there's so many goals that you only have 180 days. That's not a lot of time. Because those days are moving. Those days kids are in session. And
should we lengthen the school year?
Yeah, you have to pay for it. I think we should. I mean, my view of it, I think parents, by August, when the back to school things, well, they probably start in the stores by now.
Yeah, Staples used to run that Christmas song,
it's the most wonderful time of the year. Yeah, I think by August, most parents are ready to send their kids back to school. I think that, either longer days, that gets to be complicated with sports and other activities, either longer days or longer year would really help to give us more time. But again, we're asking our teachers to work more, and we'd have to compensate them appropriately. And that's a budget question.
Well, that's the same. It's no different than somebody saying, I want the library open on Sundays. Okay, give me the budget for that.
Right, sure.
I want, more policemen on the street. Okay, give me the budget for that. We wanted to, add more firemen. Okay.
Right.
They're all dollar questions.
It's all
when
dollar
you look
questions.
at it. But fortunately, it seems Milford supports education very well.
They do, and I've seen, this is again my 9th different school committee, composition. And the committees have worked very well over the years to really support education. Okay.
Well, I heard a little beeping, which means we're running out of time. I know we've gone all over the place with this interview, but Bob, thanks for coming in, and have a good school year.
Thanks, Kevin. Good talking with you. And any parents who want to pick up the phone and chat or come in my office and talk about school, love to have you.
Okay.
Thanks.